Hello and welcome back to UiPath Expo Hub, where experts meet. Today we are into a very interesting chapter which is more of practical oriented. Most in the practical exam you would find such questions and you should be able to answer it. So we will see that example. So before we get started, I would thank all of you, all our subscribers, and I would also request everybody who is watching the UiPath Expo Hub and getting benefited, please do hit on the like button and do let us know what you felt about the videos. Thank you very much for all your support. So as I said, today our practical exam oriented dispatcher and performer project is something we are going to see it live. So in this chapter, let me tell you that we are going to cover so many aspects of UiPath Orchestrator and UiPath Studio. You will see how do you upload the package, how do you create the package, you will see the queue, how to utilize the queue, how to run a job, right, and should stop activity, which is more of orchestrator oriented, how to utilize that. Trycatch activity, where we will see how to, when we come under exceptions, how do you handle those exceptions. We will see how to terminate the workflow. There's an activity for this one, and then we will see the fully automated dispatcher and Performa Bot in action. Okay, so we will not run anything manually from UiPath Studio. Rather, we will be uploading the entire package to the orchestrator and try to run it from there. Okay, we will run a job and make it fully automated. So let's see how to do that. Let's get started. So the very first thing that you do is you create a new project, right, which is a blank one, and in the main.xml you keep it as it is. Okay, I'm going to let you know when to start working on that one. So the very first thing you do is you click on new sequence. So before we get started, as I said, this is all about the dispatcher and performer, right? So I'm going to name it as dispatcher, one workflow I'm going to create. So let me introduce you as to what we have to do, what is the objective of this project. Okay, so the very first thing that I'm going to show you is the application called UI demo. This is again from UiPath. So for this, the password, I think most of you might have got this application on your systems if you are following uipathacademy.com. So please get that on your system in case you have not done it already. So this is the application. I think most of you must have seen this. Okay, this is again coming from UiPath Academy. So in this application, our job is to fill this application. So cache in, on, as, check, not on, as, check. So these are the three different data one has to enter. So this accepts only integer value. So alphabets will not work. So any integer value I will enter, and then I can hit on accept. Okay, so that is how the application takes the data, and all of this data I should upload it from a file. Okay, so this is my transactions file which has got all the data. Okay, cache in, honest check, not honest check. So this is exact data which is supposed to get entered in this application. Okay, if you see it. So again, as I said, this has got a business exception. So when I say business exception, it is kind of a validation, data validation. Okay, business exception is nothing but for the business, what is the data validation you will do. So here if you see the cache in the third row, it has got E897.56, which is not an integer value. So anywhere in your Excel file, if there is a data which is not an integer type, so that is an invalid data, so it should not enter that. So how do you create that try catch exception to handle that? We will also see it. Okay, so our job is pretty clear. We have to upload this Excel file data to our orchestrator queue. Okay, so once you upload the data to the orchestrator queue, next is the Performa Bot, which will take each transaction item from the queue and try to upload the data into this application. So even though you are not clear what I'm talking, so let's get started with the workflow. That's where you will get a complete and clear idea, and this is going to help you on the practical exam that you're going to face. Okay, so let's get started. So the very first thing that I will do is I'll go to UiPath Studio, and here I have created the sequence called dispatcher. Okay, which is a completely new sequence that I've created. Okay, same thing what I'm going to do, I'll create a new sequence for the performer. So I will simply say performer. So you can give any name. not required that you have to say performer or dispatcher, but for our understanding I'm just creating two new sequences. One I'm naming it as dispatcher, the other one I'm naming it as performer. So the very first thing that I have to do is, my first job is to dispatch the Excel data to the orchestrator queue, right? So let's go back to our orchestrator and hit on queue, and here I'm going to create a queue and I'll give a name. So I'm saying Q1, any name you can give, and maximum retry. If there is a error, right, if the application did not work, or you have closed the application, or your system got shut down and there is no application for the bot to enter, so any kind of application kind of a failure, that is where how many retries you want. So let's say the retry, I will say 2 or 3, whatever retry number you can give that, and hit on add. So that simple it is to create a queue. So a queue got created, okay, and there is no data inside the queue right now. So we have to create a dispatcher bot or dispatcher workflow which will upload the data to the queue. So let's start working on it. So this is the sequence I have created. So when somebody says dispatcher, the meaning is it's a workflow where you have to design it to upload the data to the queue. Okay, so I am in the dispatcher sequence now. Here what I'm going to do, the first activity that I'm going to use is read range activity. Okay, so I'm going to drag and drop the read range workbook activity, and the first thing I'm going to do is point this to the file. So the file is here, done. So once you pointed that to the file, it should read the entire data. So I'm going to remove this and put a double quote. The meaning is it will read the entire data available in the sheet 1. Okay, done. So once you read it, the data should get downloaded to a data table. So control plus K. As I said, data table is a temporary storage of your Excel data. Okay, like you do copy paste, right? It goes to a clipboard, and the clipboard contains the data, and anytime you want to paste it, control V, when you do from the clipboard, the data get copied to the destination. So same thing, data table is nothing but a clipboard kind of activity which stores the entire Excel data. It copies the entire Excel data, whatever you have mentioned to read, and then it will keep it as a temporary storage. So let me create a control plus K and DT1, that data table 1 I have created. Okay, so DT1, data table 1 I have created, and after this what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a for each row. So this this is very critical one. You have to continue to learn this, okay, and practice it on your laptop. Now on the for each row, what I'm going to do, I'm going to mention the DT1, the data table 1, and I have to upload all the data to the queue, right? For that, the activity that you should use is add queue item. Okay, and this is very simple to use. In the add queue item, what I'm going to do, I have to mention the queue name. For that, let me go back to orchestrator, and here I'm going to copy the queue name and go back to my UiPath Studio, and here in the place of queue name I'm going to put a double quote and paste the queue name. Okay, done. After that, I have to enter the data that is there. So on the top I have read the Excel file, and the data is stored in data table 1 DT1, and now I'm running through the for each row and I have to upload the data one by one. So as I understood, the Excel file has got 3 columns, right? So I have to enter cache in, on as check, and not on as check. These are the 3 different data I have to enter. So the first in, what I'm going to do, and exactly this 3 data will be entered in the application. Okay, so first one I'm saying cache in, and this data I can get it from row, and you can mention the index number, which is 0. The first one is 0 dot to string. Okay, by doing that, what would happen, from the Excel file, the first data will get entered from this column. Okay, so like that, when the loop is going to run for each row, all the data one by one, row by row, it will be uploaded. Now the next one I want is on as check, right? What is the name? The name is on as check. So the same thing you can type on. So not necessarily the same thing, you can type your own data, but again we are using the same data, right? So keeping the name exactly the same is a good option. So row, but you can give your own name also, that doesn't matter. So row 1 dot to string, done. And the third one is not on as check, so I will say not on as check. So and then I've created duplicates. Okay, so here I have to say row, and this is 2 dot toString. So this is the index number. So understood. So now I have got all the three data 0, 1, 2. All this data will get uploaded with these names. Clear? Okay, so all the three data is there. Now I should click on OK. So my dispatcher bot is ready. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to run the dispatcher bot, and I supposed to upload all the data to the queue. This is my first job, okay, which has to be done manually. So what has happened, this error might happen if your Excel file is kept open. So mine Excel file is open, so let me close the Excel file and try to run it again, because I am using a workbook activity. If you are using an Excel application scope, you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so I started running it. So it will take certain amount of time because there are 50 data. All the data supposed to get uploaded. Okay, looks like the data has been uploaded. So let's go back to our queue and try to go to the details of it. Okay, so when you click on view transactions, you can see all the data has been uploaded. Okay, so the first data will be at the end. So if you open this data and see the details, you will see the very first data 911.07. So this is the data which has come properly. Okay, so now the data has been uploaded. Now the next thing that I have to design is the Performa Bot, which is supposed to download that data and then enter into the application. Okay, so for that, what I'm going to do, the activity that I should use is get transaction data, which you should remember. Okay, this activities you should know. So while you practice, you will get to know. So get transaction item is the activity. So here the only thing I have to do is mention the queue name. Again, as I said, the best practice is to copy so that you avoid a spelling mistake. So I copy this, and here in the queue name I have to put a double quote and paste it and click OK. Done. And then once it gets downloaded from the queue, there should be a output in some variable it should store, right? So for that, what I'm going to do, control plus K, and here I'm going to create a variable. So downloaded transaction item, I am saying, okay, DT item. Clear? So this is the variable which will contain the data which is getting downloaded. So one thing you need to understand pretty clearly, if you go to the queue and open the view transactions and open any of the data or any one of the data, you will see this DT item, the variable which will contain the data. It has got three different elements. One is the caption, another one is honest check, and the next one is not honest check. There are three different data, and the data type is object. It's an object type, okay, which is not a string, which is not an integer. It's an object. You need to remember that the data type is object. So this object, what we have to do is we have to convert that to integer format, because your application only takes integer. If you type ABCD or anything, you can see I'm trying to type actually on my keyboard, so it's not taking any alphabet. So this is only accepting integer. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to utilize three assign activities, because there are three different data. So if there are 5 data, you have to utilize 5 different assign activities. So here there are 3 data, so I'll be using 3 different assign activities. And here what I'm going to do, here in this assign, I'm going to write the expression. So my data is getting downloaded to DT item, that means downloaded transaction item. Here I will say specific content. So I think you must have understood what is specific content, because it's going to download the specific content. There are 3 different content, right? So the first content is what? The first content is caption. So I'll copy the exact name and paste it over here. Okay, and I have to convert this object to integer type. So in the front, all I have to do is put a curly brackets. If you see it, hope you can see it, right? So I put a curly bracket, and here I'm going to simply say cint. So it will convert that data, that object, into integer type. Done. And that data supposed to stay. Okay, I've done it over here. Let me put it on the first assign activity. So here what I'm going to do, the caption supposed to get to a variable. So here I'm going to declare a variable, control plus K, and I will say data1, D1. Okay, and this d1 supposed to be the variable type supposed to be integer. So I'm going to select integer. Done. So that way you will see the data from, if you see this, the data from the transaction queue is getting downloaded. Which data? Cache in data. And this is the object type, so I'm converting this to integer, and that data will get stored into the d1 variable or data 1. Okay, the same thing I have to repeat. So all I will do is copy this formula and paste it here and paste it here, and then here let me declare two variables, d2, and here let me declare the third variable, data3, d3, and here all I have to do is go to this expression, and in this expression all you have to do is go to your orchestrator, the second data I will replace that honest check, so that will go to d2. The third data is not honest check, I will copy that, and here in the third activity I am going to paste it. Clear? So you can see all of this data I have pasted, and all this data will be assigned to d2 and d3. Now the only thing you have to do, the variables, the d1, d2, d3 variables, right? All these variables are supposed to be integer type, right? So all I have to do is convert all of this to integer. Okay, so you can see the error has gone, and all the object type of data is now getting converted to integer and getting stored into these three variables. Okay, so this we have understood. Now the next activity, what I have to do, I have to use type into, right? I have to type all this data into the application. So I will use three different type into activities because there are three data. So let me drag and drop all these three, and here I'll click on indicate on screen. So before you click on indicate on screen, keep that application back of UiPath Studio. Now you click on indicate on screen and select the first data. Done. And here the first data is there in d1, right? That cache in. So d1 dot toString you have to do, because it's a type into activity. So that way this is going to store the data into submit the data into the caching field of that application. Now the next data I have to enter is honest check, and here again the same format you have to follow, d2 dot toString. So this is also done, and the third element is your not honest check. So select that, and here you have to mention the same thing. All you have to do is write d3 dot toString. Okay, so this all three data will be uploaded to that application. Now the third thing that you have to do is you have to hit on click. You have to, for the next data, you have to hit on the accept button in the application. So all I have to do is indicate on screen and hit on accept. Okay, so this way all your data will get uploaded to the application. So we have designed a very simple workflow. This is quite simple. So let me just try to run it from the studio for the moment, and then we will see how to upload that to orchestrator and run it automatically. So right now what would happen, if you see the application has opened and now it is entering the data. So you understood, right? And then it hit on accept. So with this, you need to also remember, when you are running directly from here, it will only pull one transaction item. It will not pull, if you see in the orchestrator, if you go back to the queue, there are so many transactions, right? There are so many transaction items, but right now it has only found one item. It did not process the second, because we have to put this workflow into a loop. That is where this will take all of this data one by one. Okay, so before we get on to the loop, let me tell you, in our Excel file, if you see, this is what is very critical. As I said, there is a condition to this. What is the condition? If the data is not an integer, okay, if the data is not an integer value, it should not enter. So right now our second transaction item, which is not an integer data, right? If I see the second transaction item, if you go to the last of the page and see the second one, click on view details, you will see this data is not an integer type. Okay, if this is not an integer type, it has to throw an error to the orchestrator and say, okay, your data is invalid. Okay, so how to do that? So first thing, if the data is correct, then also it should say the data is correct and successful, right? So for that, all you have to do is you have to use an activity called set transaction. Hope I am making it clear. Set transaction status is nothing but is the activity which will tell orchestrator what has happened. Okay, so that you have to manually set it. There is no mechanism for it to automatically know. You have to manually set it. So what I'm going to do it here, if the data is correct, if it is going through everything and hitting on accept, then it should say the data is successful. Okay, by default the successful is there. So when you run it, it will automatically update the orchestrator here and it will say successful. Okay, so that is what it is. Now if the data is wrong, then what to do, how will you handle? So for that we have to use a try catch. Okay, so how to utilize a try catch? First thing I will do is I'll use a sequence, and inside this sequence I'm going to drag and drop all of these activities that I've just created. Okay, all the assign activities, all the type into activities, everything I am going to put it inside this sequence. Okay, I'm just going to drag and drop all of this. You can also use a control, select all of that and try to drag and drop, whichever way works for you. Okay, so now if you see I have dragged all of these activities in the sequence. Now I have to apply a try catch. So here if you see there is an error. Why this error has come? Okay, here in the transaction item, remember this, here you have to mention the variable which is containing the transaction item, which is dt item, right? So dt item is the variable which is downloading the data from the queue. So this is the dt item or downloaded transaction item. So that you have to mention in the set transaction status. So there is no error now. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is, if a data is not integer, right, then there has to be a exception saying your data is invalid. Okay, so for that you have to use a try catch. So how do you apply a try catch? Just right click and here you have something called surround with try catch. That's all, very simple. Okay, so once you do this try catch activity, just below this if you scroll down you have this something called catch. So if there is a exception, so when somebody say exception, the literal meaning of this one is error. If there is an error, okay, so there are various types of error. So one of the error is called casting error, invalid cast exception. So if you want to know what is invalid cast exception, let me show you in the Google, invalid cast exception. So the meaning of invalid cast exception is thrown when the conversion of an instance of one type to another type is not supported. For example, here in your assign activity, if you see what exactly it's trying to do, it is trying to convert, right, that object into integer type cint, right? But when it has got a e, if it is 1 2 3 4 5, it can convert into integer. If it is e 1 2 3 4 5, it cannot convert that to integer because there is alphabet. So there should not be alphabet in your string, right? So at that point of time when the exception or the error will be thrown stating invalid cast exception. So this error will be thrown at what time? When there is an instance where it cannot convert from one type to another type. Okay, this is the exception, this is the error you should remember. Okay, now let me go back to UiPath, and here what I'm going to do, I'm going to select that error, exception. So click on the catch section here. Okay, click here, and then here in the drop down you may not have this invalid cast exception. So if it is not there, click on browse for types, and here you should type system dot invalid, just type invalid and you will get this cast exception and select this, click on OK. Okay, so this exception is nothing but anytime there is an error which cannot convert a type string to integer or integer to string or whatever it is, that is where it will catch it. So the moment it catches that error, what it's supposed to do, I'm going to use another activity called set transaction starter, the same activity what we have utilized just over that. So I'm going to utilize this particular activity. So for that, highlight this and then drag and drop it here. So this once, what I'm going to do here, the status should say failed. So that means if it comes over here, it should send the status to orchestrator saying it has failed. And why it has failed, here in the reason you write it. Here I'm going to say invalid or not integer or invalid data, whatever you like to type, invalid data. So when I do this, let me show you this how it works. Okay, so this is understood, and the another thing you need to remember is transaction item you have to mention. So here dt item is my variable which contains the transaction item. Done. So this you have understood. So let me first run this for you and show you how it works. So this time, if you see in your queue, okay, the second data is invalid data, isn't it? The second data is invalid. So this will not be able to enter the data. So what I'm going to do, let me run it and it will throw you an exception and it should get caught in the orchestrator. So let me run it and you will see a practical example. So immediately it is going to throw you an error. Okay, do you see that? Cannot conversion of string E987 to integer, it not possible because there is a E, there is an alphabet, it cannot convert it as integer. Okay, so now if I hit on continue, what would happen? It is going to throw that exception which I have set it over here in the catch section, saying it should say failed and it should also say invalid data. So let me go back to orchestrator and let me refresh this orchestrator queue, and you can see it here very clearly. It said failed and it said business. Okay, this is a business exception. So what is that business exception? When you open it, you will see it is saying invalid data. You understanding? So set transaction status is nothing but the activity which sends a report to the orchestrator. Whatever you have mentioned, as per that, it is going to send a note to the orchestrator. That's all about it. Now the other thing I have to also say, let's say it has got 50 data. After completing all the 50 data, so it has completed all the 50 data, it has processed all the 50 data. If there is a failure, it will say it has failed and things like that. Everything is done, but at the end of the 50th item, so your workflow should not close abruptly, right? For example, if you are trying to turn off your laptop, there are two different ways. One is you can use the Windows and hit on shutdown, or else you can hit on the power button. So which is the right way? So the smoothest way is doing it from the Windows, right? So similar way, for the queue to exit properly, or for the workflow to exit properly, we have an activity that we have to use. So let me show you how to implement that. For that, what I'm going to do, I have to use a if activity first. Okay, and here in the if activity, I'm going to say dt item. So remember, what is dt item? Dt item is nothing but is the output that contains the entire downloaded transaction items. Here I have declared. Okay, so dt item is not nothing means, so this is where people would get confused. So is nothing means what? Means there is no transaction item. Is not nothing means there is some transaction item, right? That is the meaning. So if there is a transaction item, all you have to do is follow this entire method, Trycatch. So it has to convert it to integer, then write it to the application if there is a transaction item. If there is no transaction item, what it's supposed to do, there's an activity called terminate workflow. That is what I was talking about, the smooth way of terminating your workflow. So I'll put that in the else section. Okay, now here in this one, what you have to do, here you can simply mention a reason, saying all the transaction item has been processed. Okay, whatever you want to type, you can type it just like this. So all the transaction item has been processed karke, you can put a message through this activity, terminate workflow. This is the smooth way of doing it. You will say I don't want to use it, it's okay, up to you, it will anyways terminate, right? So the best way is to do a smooth transaction or a smooth termination of the workflow. So that is why I am using this. Done. So I am complete with this Performa. So what I will do now, if I run it from here, what is happening? Every time it only runs one item, I have to put it into a loop. For that, you have to come back to this main. Okay, so this main is very critical. This is what is required. Now in the main, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the new flowchart. Not this way, you have to use the activity, and here in the activity simply say flow chart. Okay, so I'm going to use the flow chart in the activity. Okay, now in this flow chart, this main is very important. Okay, you have to keep this main, and inside this, what I'm going to do, the first thing I have to do is I wanted to log a message. Log a message means it will just say the processing of first transaction, processing of second transaction, processing third transaction. For that, I will be using a log message, and here in the log message, what I'm going to do, I am going to put a message saying processing transaction number. You can write any sentence, okay, started processing or whatever you like to say. Started processing transaction number, and there should be a counter, right? When it picks the first item, it should say transaction number 1 2 3 4. For that I'll be using a variable. So let me create a variable first. I'll create a counter variable. So this is quite common, we have to use in all of our logic. Counter, which is a string integer type, and I'll assign a value called 1 here, okay, and I'll be increasing that value as we go. So here what I'm going to do, the log message, I'll simply say what happened, it did not save. Okay, let me write it again. Started processing transaction number, give a space, hyphen space, and then give a plus sign, and I will say counter. So the counter value is 1, right, at the starting. Counter dot toString, because it's a message. Okay, done, and click on OK. So what is happening is it is going to log a message and say processing transaction number 1. Okay, and then as it continues to do, then I will use a assign activity and increase that counter. So I will say assign activity, and here I will say counter equals to counter plus 1. So it will give a number to me. Okay, so this is quite simple. Now the very important part is your processing part, which should get into a loop, right? It should not only process one item, rather it should process all the items. For that I'll be using the invoke workflow activity. Okay, and then I'll just put just before that invoke workflow, and I'll drag it slightly down. Okay, so here in this invoke workflow, what I'm going to do, I'll double click this one, and I'm going to call the performer. So all of this you have to save it. Okay, so save it. Now the performer one I have to call. So click on this, and here you can see the performer one XML file is there, and highlight that XML file and select it. So now your XML file is selected. So this is going to call it. Then I have to put it in a loop, I said, right? It has to continue to do that. So let me tell you, in your orchestrator, right, in your orchestrator, when you run a job from the orchestrator, it has an activity called should stop. Hope you have heard about that. So stop, do you see this stop? So this is the activity. Let's say job is running and I can, in between I can stop it. Okay, for any reason I can just, if I want, I can manually come here and hit on stop. So if somebody hits on stop, I can use an activity called should stop. Should stop. So this will have a boolean kind of a data. So this will have either true or false. So if somebody is hitting on that stop button there, so if I declare a variable, let's say control plus K, and let's say I'm declaring a variable called S. Okay, so this S variable will become true only when somebody goes to the orchestrator, go to the job and hit on click on this button and then hit on stop. Then the job will stop, and when the job stops, what would happen? The S variable which I have declared over here, this will become true. Okay, so for this to work, what I'm going to do, I'll use a decision flow or if condition. So in the workflow we'll be saying it as decision flow, right, not if. So decision flow decision. So this one, what I'm going to say, if should stop, so the value is carried in the S variable, right? So what I'm going to say here in the condition, I'll simply say S. So S is my variable. So this variable, so you should not write S actually, you have to write the entire one. You can say should stop or stop, you can give a complete variable, but for example I'm simply saying S. So this S variable, if it is true, so this will only become true when somebody hits on should stop from the orchestrator. So if it becomes true, then you should say a message that somebody has stopped the job. So I'll simply log a message and say someone has manually stopped it. So I will say someone has manually stopped the job from orchestrator. Getting it? So this will log it that somebody has stopped it. If nobody is stopping it, what it should do, if it is false, then it should continue to log this message and and continue to invoke this workflow, process workflow. So it will continue to download one item one after the other. So it is in the loop now. It will process all the items. So let me show you that demonstration. So this, all of this you have understood, right? Now what I'm going to do, the next step is hitting on the publish button. So hit on the publish button, and now right now I'm uploading the 16th version. So I'm working hard, I'm making so many projects. Okay, so now the 16th version has been uploaded, right? Okay, all you have to do is go back to the orchestrator and scroll down, and here in the packages, right, go to the packages. Okay, now here in the packages, if you see and hit on this button, you will find the latest version has been just uploaded. Now you want to see what is that, what has been uploaded, just click on this button, explore package, and here you will see the 16th version of the package has been uploaded. Okay, and this is the main.xml which is invoking the process. Okay, so you can see everything how it has been written. Okay, you can just get a high level understanding of your workflow. So the package has been uploaded. Now the next job you have to do is go back to the processes. So all of this I have taught in the previous chapter, how to set the process and all that. So here all you have to do is highlight your process. How to set a process, if you want to know, you can check our previous videos. You have to follow all our videos. So this is the process tab. All you have to do is select the package, select the process, and hit on this button, click on yes. So what would happen, the latest version will get uploaded. So you can see a green tick box has come. Okay, the latest package has been uploaded. Now I want to run a job. To run a job, what I have to do, go to jobs and hit on the start button and select your process name. Okay, everything else is just like that, and select a robot. Now they will say run this package from 5 different robots. So that time, because I am using only one machine and one machine can have only one robot, so I cannot show you multiple robots right now. But in a corporate environment, or in a if you have a VDI that you can connect to, you can see multiple robots which are assigned to this orchestrator can be seen over here. So I can see all the robots. Just imagine there are 5 different robots. So all you have to do is select all the robots. So this is going to automatically distribute that work. There is no manual way. So it will automatically distribute the work. If there are 50 work, it might be distributing 5 to each robot and complete all the 50 transaction items. So that is all about it. So if there are multiple robots, just highlight and select them and hit on start. So the moment I would start, you would see my application, that application where it's supposed to enter the data will start entering the data, and it will also note wherever there is an exception, it is going to note that this data was invalid. So let's see that. So now you will see the application will come up, and in that application all the data will be entered one by one. So you can see on my screen how nicely it is entering the data one by one and hitting on accept. Do you see that? So wherever there is a wrong data, it will skip it. So let it run for a few minutes, so we can grab couple of items which has failed or which has a wrong data. We also need to see that orchestrator has captured that data has not been entered into this application, or there is an invalid data, there is a failure in that data. Okay, so we will see it in just in few minutes. So let it run. So you can see how nicely it's completely automated. I am not doing anything from my end. Everything is automated, and it is clicking on accept button, clicking on entering all the data. So this is called dispatcher and performer in action and fully automated. Okay, only the dispatcher part of this is something we have to run it manually. We have to initiate that. Okay, otherwise rest of the performer, when it comes to the performer bot, it runs automatically. Even I can schedule my dispatcher, the dispatcher workflow. I can create a separate workflow, and I can schedule a time for that. So every day at certain time it should capture the data from certain application, download it to Excel file, and then upload it to the queue. That can also be scheduled, that can also be made automated. Okay, so I think you must have got a knowledge or idea as to how to do it. So right now you can see it has almost entered a lot of data, and I think this is the time for us to stop it manually. So I was talking about should stop activity, right? So when I hit on should stop, let's see what's going to happen. So all I have to do before you hit on should stop, right now I am on the single application, all I will do is I will try to drag and make it down, and here I have to click on this button, and here I am going to hit on stop. Okay, so I will say yes. So it is trying to stop it. Okay, so it has stopped and it is successful. So let's see, let me open this. Let me click on, if you hit on view logs, if you see, it will have all the logs. Okay, for example, this one, someone has manually stopped the job from orchestrator. Do you see this? This message has been logged. This is what I was talking. Okay, and then if I, for example, transaction started, you can see started processing, transaction number 39 started processing. This is what we have in the workflow we have written, right? Log message started processing transaction number. So this is what it is coming. Okay, so you got a complete idea. Right now what I want to see is, I want to see how many data has been entered, right? So for that, all you have to do is go to the queue. Okay, hit on the queue, not this one, this one, queue, and here in this queues, all I will do is hit on view transactions, and here in the view transactions, if I scroll back to the pages, you will see all of this data is successfully uploaded to the application. And you see this data has not been uploaded. Why this data has not been uploaded? Let's see that. So if you see, this data has got a invalid, so there is a reason, invalid data C146, getting it? So this is how nicely we have uploaded all the data, and whichever the wrong data was there in our Excel file has not been uploaded. Okay, wrong data has been skipped and it has been logged in the orchestrator saying it has failed. Do you see? This is how we have completely manually designed the workflow, and we have automated it through orchestrator by uploading into the package and running the job. Okay, so you can see even this data is wrong, so invalid data, and this data has failed to enter into the application. So this is how, guys, we have designed the entire workflow, and I hope you guys have understood in detail on how to design a dispatcher and Performa Bot, how to fully automate it, how do you log the messages into the orchestrator, right? All of this you have understood pretty clearly. So thank you for watching this video, and one more request, guys, please do let me know what you feel about this video. What is your, what is your experience from the video, what you have learned from the video? Did you like it, you didn't like it? So let us know everything about it, so that next videos we will improve, and next videos what is more useful for you, you will come up with those kind of videos. Please do like. Thank you for subscribing our channel, thank you for liking, and thank you for giving us great comments which I enjoy to read them. Thank you very much for all your support, guys. You guys have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye bye.